The 10th schedule is triggered off only against a member who voluntarily gives up the membership of a political party. And if somebody voluntarily does not give up the membership of a political party and is expelled by the political party, the provisions of 10th schedule itself would be inapplicable in such a case. The last question, Madam, which was raised by Shri Pranab Mukherjee with regard to the width of the meaning of the word remunerative political post. I think it's a hypothetical question which would require an interpretation on a future date. But I'll just draw his attention to the fact that as recommended by the committee headed by him and incorporated by the government, remunerative political posts will only be those offices which are offices under the government of India. So it will apply only to such offices which are under the government. That's the first reading. But I don't wish to be conclusive on this, because how this provision works itself out in future is for the future itself really to decide. With these few words, Madam, I thank the honourable members for having participated in this debate and having made some very valuable suggestions. I commend to this House that this bill be accepted.
For a second, my good friend mentioned, the Honourable Minister mentioned that the Supreme Court, through its judgment, in a way tended to interfere with the proceedings within the House. I just want to make the record straight that this happened in the context of the interpretation of paragraph 2(1)(b) of the 10th schedule, which results in a candidate suffering from a member suffering from a disqualification if he does not obey the direction of the party issued in the House. And in that context, the issue was, in what circumstances would the disqualification be visited on the member? And in those circumstances, the Supreme Court made that observation, saying in any case, it is subject to the procedure of the House. So the Supreme Court was not trying to impose its will on Parliament or in any... I just wanted to clarify that so that the matter is not misunderstood. And as far as the latest, the clarification you gave, Kwe Pranab Das question, the issue really is of propriety. And since the Honourable Prime Minister mentioned the other day that the political system is sounding hollow, I am sure the government would apply those principles not just to government posts but to any post, including posts in this House.
I shall now put the motion for the consideration of the bill to vote. The question is that the bill further to amend the Constitution of India as passed by Lok Sabha be taken into consideration. Those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those against, will please say no. I think the ayes have it. There will be, under the Article 368 of the Constitution, the motion will have to be adopted by a majority of total membership of the House. I would request the members to be little patient, because there are some new members, nominated members in this House, and I know that this is the first Constitution amendment for them, and it is necessary that in silence they can understand the process. Thank you. Under the Article 368 of the Constitution, the motion will have to be adopted by a majority of the total membership of the House and by a majority of not less than 2/3 of the member of the House present and voting. I would like the Secretary General to explain the voting process. Yeah, division. The gallery should be cleared, and while the galleries are being cleared, please you explain the process. Lobby, sorry. I am using the lobby. Anyway, lobbies are galleries. Two different nomenclatures.
Honourable members, for your convenience, I shall explain the voting procedure by the automatic vote recording system. It may be please noted that each member has been provided with an integrated microphone and voting console containing 4 buttons: P for present, A for ayes, O for abstain, and N for noes. There is also a separately situated security button in red, vote activation, provided on the language selector. A red LED vote now lighting during the voting period indicates that the voting functions are operational and active. To record a vote, a member has to press the vote activation button and one of the voting buttons of his choice, that is ayes, noes, abstention simultaneously. Each voting button has an assigned LED indicating the correct and valid voting function as long as the button is pressed together with the vote activation button. The voting process starts with a musical sound.
कृपया खामोश रह सकते हैं तो उनकी आवाज सब सुन ले, आप तो एक्सपीरियंस है.
The voting process starts with a musical sound on the large screen hall display in the two corners of the chamber. Each member has to keep the voting button as well as the vote activation button pressed simultaneously for 10 seconds. That is at the time of closing of voting in order to register a valid vote. During the voting period, the member can change his vote at any time. The vote cast at the time when the voting period is ending will be valid. That is, the buttons kept pressed at the 10th second will be recorded. In case either one or both the buttons are released prior to close of voting period, the vote will not be registered. The countdown time is also indicated on the display board. If a member finds that he has voted by mistake by pressing the wrong button, he can be allowed to correct his mistake, provided he brings it to the notice of the chairman before the result of the division is announced. Thank you.
Anyone needs any clarification, the new members? Then we can ask the staff to come and identify it to you. So I'll put the bell and stop.
Bell is going on. Bell हो रही है?
हो गया. Honorable members, the lobbies are cleared. I'll put the question that the bill further to amend the Constitution of India as passed by Lok Sabha be taken into consideration. Those in favor will please say aye. Aye. Those against will please say no. I think the ayes have a division. Press the button.
The voting will start now.
Subject to correction, ayes 152, noes how much?
152.
I did not say nil. Noes nil. अगर थोड़े सन्नाटा हो जाए तो मैं अनाउंस कर दूं. Ayes 152, noes nil. The motion is adopted by a majority of the total membership of the House and by a majority of not less than 2/3 of the members of the House present and voting. We shall now take up clause by clause consideration of the bill. Clause 2 stand part of the bill. The question is that clause 2 stand part of the bill. Those in favor please say aye. Aye. Those against will please say no. I think the ayes have a division.
The voting starts now.
Subject to correction. Subject to correction, clause 2 is adopted by a majority of total membership of the House and by a majority of not less than 2/3 of the members of the House present and voting. Now clause 3 stand part of the bill. There is one amendment, one by Shri Ramashankar Kaushik. आप मूव कर रहे हैं कि नहीं? मूव नहीं कर रहे हैं. Okay. I shall now put clause 3 to vote. Those in favor will please say aye. Aye. Those against will please say no. I think the ayes have a vote division.
The vote starts now. 66.
Gradually the population of the house is increasing. Yeah, minute by minute. I is 100, subject to correction, I is 166, noes nil. Clause 3 is adopted by a majority of the total membership of the House and by a majority of not less than 2/3 of the members of the House present and voting. Clause 4 stand part of the bill. The question is that clause 4 stand part of the bill. Those in favor please say aye. Aye. Those against will please say no. I think the ayes have a division.
The voting starts now.
Honorable members, subject to correction, ayes 162, noes nil. Clause 4 is adopted by a majority of the total membership of the House and by a majority of not less than 2/3 of the members of the House present and voting. Clause 5 stand part of the bill. The question is that clause 5 stand part of the bill. Those in favor please say aye. Aye. Those against will please say no. I think the ayes have a division.
The voting starts now.
वो लिख के भेज दें, वो लिख के भेज सकते हैं. Subject to correction, clause 5 is adopted by a majority of the total membership of the House and by a majority of not less than 2/3 of the members of the House present and voting. Clause 1, the enacting formula and the title stand part of the bill. The question is that clause 1, the enacting formula and the title stand part of the bill. Those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those against, please say no. I think the ayes have a division.
The voting starts now.
Honorable members, subject to correction, clause 1, the enacting formula and the title are adopted by a majority of total membership of the House and by a majority of not less than 2/3 of the members of the House present and voting. Shri Arun Jaitley.
Madam, I move that the bill be adopted by the House.
Motion moved that the bill be passed. The question is that the bill be passed. Those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those against will please say no. I think the ayes have a division.
Voting starts now.
Subject to correction, ayes 163, noes nil. The motion is adopted by a majority of the total membership of the House and by a majority of not less than 2/3 of the members of the House present and voting. The bill is passed by the requisite majority. Thank you very much. Honorable members, we were only delayed by less than 1 hour. If the House so agrees, we can adjourn for half an hour. You can go and have some tea, coffee. Okay. Half an hour, the House is adjourned for half an hour.
सभासदों, माननीय उपसभापति जी,
एक मैसेज और
क्या है? आप करेंगे?
लोकसभा
माननीय महासचिव, लोकसभा से संदेश।
Sir, I beg to report that the Lok Sabha, at its sitting held on the 17th of December 2003, passed the appropriation number 5 bill 2003 The Speaker has certified that this bill is a money bill within the meaning of Article 110 of the Constitution. I lay a copy of the bill on the table.
माननीय सुरेश पचौरी अध्यादेश के संबंध में नहीं है। माननीय राम जेठमलानी नहीं है। माननीय एनआर दसारी नहीं है। माननीय वीवी राघवन नहीं है। माननीय गया सिंह नहीं है। माननीय टी सुब्रमण्यम रेड्डी नहीं है। माननीय नीलोत्पल बसु नहीं है। माननीय कपिल सिब्बल।
Has the bill been amendment been introduced? Thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman. I rise to oppose the resolution, the ordinance issued by the government in respect of the amendment to the POTA Act. And this is an issue which we have brought time and again before this House, that important amendments of this nature must be discussed thoroughly, especially when there is no real urgency for bringing these amendments. You are aware that a discussion.
आप पहले वो तो मूव कर दीजिए प्रस्ताव।
मोशन तो मेरे पास है ही नहीं ना। I don't have it. This is the problem. Just give me the motion. I didn't even know it was mine. Okay. Sir, I move the following resolution that this House disapproves the Prevention of Terrorism Amendment Ordinance 2003 promulgated by the President of India on 27th of October 2003. Thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman. As I was saying, that we have seen in the recent past this government resorting to the ordinance route time and again in respect of important matters of legislation. And if you look at the Constitutional Assembly debates, and if you look at decisions of courts from time to time, courts have opined, and it's clear from constitutional debates, that the route to the ordinance making power under Article 123 of the Constitution should only be adopted in emergent situations, mostly when the House is not in session, when the matter needs urgent attention of the government, that it cannot await the constitution of the House, or it cannot await a new session, the coming of the new session. In that situation only should the ordinance route be adopted. But we found that time and again this government is resorting to the ordinance route, especially in matters which affect the fundamental rights of citizens. In any case, as far as this particular bill is concerned, we have our grave amendment is concerned, we have our grave suspicions, and we believe, since we are opposing the Act itself, that such an amendment at least should not have been moved through the ordinance route. The matter should have been sent, could have been sent to the standing committee, or consultations could have taken place, because this matter didn't arise yesterday. It has been the subject matter of public debate for a long period of time. I remember the Honorable Deputy Prime Minister was in this House when I asked a question as to why review committees were not being set up. And then the Honorable Deputy Prime Minister got up and said, yes, this is a suggestion for action. I remember those words. And thereafter, the government contemplated in setting up these review committees, and they were set up. So it's not something that happened overnight. This happened almost more than 1 year ago. So if ultimately powers were going to be given to the review committees, this is something that ought to have been discussed, not only with other political parties, but it could have been sent to the standing committee. Because the kind of flaws that I see in this legislation, which are so clear, that it is unthinkable that such an amendment should be passed, and it has been passed in the Lok Sabha and should be passed in this House, both from the point of view of principle and from the procedural standpoint, such an amendment doesn't bear the scrutiny, will not bear the scrutiny of courts, and such an amendment cannot override the authority of courts to decide matters relating to offences committed under POTA. Because the manner in which this amendment is sought to be interpreted is that the review committees are vested with judicial powers. And if that's the intent of the government, to give judicial powers to the review committees, then this is a very serious issue which affects not just human rights, but affects the whole process of the democratic functioning of the state. So I would have thought that in these circumstances, instead of going through the route of the ordinance under Article 123, discussions could have taken place and procedures could have been adopted to ensure that the remedy that is sought to be provided for in this amendment is not worse than the disease. Because that's what's happened. So, sir, I strongly move the resolution that this House disapproves this ordinance promulgated by the President of India on the 27th of October 2003.
माननीय गृह मंत्री जी।
उपसभापति महोदय, सिब्बल जी ने जो डिसअप्रूवल का प्रस्ताव प्रस्तुत किया है, उसमें स्पष्ट है कि उनका डिसअप्रूवल मुख्य रूप से पोटा के बारे में है। इसमें उन्होंने यह भी बात लाई है कि अध्यादेश के माध्यम से इस संशोधन को लाने की बजाय अगर सामान्य तौर पर लाते तो स्टैंडिंग कमेटी के पास जाता और उस पर विचार करके फिर निर्णय होता। सिद्धांततः मैं उनकी बात से सहमत हूँ कि अध्यादेश का प्रयोग कम से कम होना चाहिए, और मैं तुलना भी नहीं करना चाहता हूं कि पहले कैसा होता था अब कैसा होता है, इन पिछले 5 सालों में कितने अध्यादेश हुए हैं या नहीं हुए हैं। लेकिन मैं उनकी बात के वजन को स्वीकार करते हुए भी मैं समझता हूं कि विगत दिनों में पोटा के दुरुपयोग के बारे में चर्चा के संदर्भ में ये कहा गया कि जब हम कहते थे कि भाई पोटा का कहीं दुरुपयोग हुआ है तो उसके लिए रिव्यू कमेटीज़ हैं जो उस दुरुपयोग को ठीक कर सकती हैं, उसके बारे में कोई राय दे सकती हैं। तो आशंका प्रकट की जाती थी कि क्या ये रिव्यू कमेटी अगर कहेगी तो भी क्या उनकी राय बाइंडिंग होगी। 3 ऐसे प्रावधान हैं विधेयक के एक्ट के जिसमें स्पेसिफिकली रिव्यू कमेटी का उल्लेख है, लेकिन ये जो रिव्यू कमेटी है क्लॉज सेक्शन 60 के अधीन उसमें ऐसी कोई जिक्र नहीं है, और इसीलिए लगता था कि अच्छा होगा कि इस बात पर डिस्प्यूट कोई एग्जीक्यूटिव करे। एग्जीक्यूटिव का मतलब है सेंटर की हो चाहे स्टेट की हो, कि ये एडवाइजरी है, ये हमारे ऊपर बाइंडिंग नहीं है। इस बात का निराकरण करने के लिए इसके बारे में कोई संदेह न रह पाए, इस दृष्टि से अगर ऐसा प्रावधान कर दिया जाए कि जिसमें इसको बाइंडिंग किया जाए, और फिर इस आशंका को भी ध्यान में रखा गया कि अगर मानो सेंट्रल रिव्यू कमेटी और स्टेट की रिव्यू कमेटी के दृष्टिकोण में अंतर है तो सेंट्रल रिव्यू कमेटी जो है उसका दृष्टिकोण बाइंडिंग होगा। इसके आधार पर ये निर्णय किया गया है। इसमें कोई रिव्यू कमेटी को जुडिशियल अथॉरिटी देने का प्रावधान नहीं है, और जुडिशरी का अपना रोल है। और जो दूसरा संशोधन भी लोकसभा ने पारित किया है उसमें अगर कोई निर्णय होता है तो वो निर्णय इस प्रकार से लागू होगा कि जैसे एग्जीक्यूटिव ने इस प्रकार का आरोप लगाया ही नहीं और मूलतः विड्रॉन माना जाएगा, ये उसमें प्रावधान है। उसमें जुडिशरी का जो अधिकार है उसमें किसी भी प्रकार की कमी नहीं हुई है। आज मैं अपेक्षा करता हूं माननीय सदस्यों से जो यहाँ
माननीय मंत्री
बोलते
जी,
हैं।
आप प्रस्ताव प्रस्तुत कर दीजिए।
हाँ,
प्रस्ताव प्रस्तुत कर
हाँ,
दीजिए।
प्रस्ताव प्रस्तुत करता हूं, लेकिन मैं साथ साथ ये भी अपेक्षा करता हूं कि हमने पोटा के उपयुक्तता अनुपयुक्तता पर एक लंबी बहस की है और 2 बार, एक बार दोनों सदनों में अलग अलग की है, एक बार संयुक्त अधिवेशन में की है। तो आज हम चर्चा करें इस संशोधन विधेयक पर, जिस संशोधन विधेयक में जो लोग मूल कोटा के कानून से सहमत न भी हैं, वो भी मानेंगे कि इस संशोधन विधेयक के द्वारा कोटा के दुरुपयोग की संभावना को अंकुश लगा है, उस पर कमी करने की कोशिश की है और इसीलिए जो लोग कोटा के विरुद्ध भी थे वे भी इसका स्वागत करेंगे, उसका समर्थन करेंगे। ये अपेक्षा करते हुए मैं चाहूंगा कि इस संशोधन विधेयक पर ही चर्चा सीमित हो तो अच्छा होगा। मैं इन शब्दों के साथ सदन से अनुरोध करता हूं कि इस विधेयक को, संशोधन विधेयक को सर्वसम्मति से स्वीकार करें।
प्रस्ताव प्रस्तुत हुआ। माननीय कपिल सिब्बल।
Mr. Vice Chairman. Mr. Vice Chairman, I would like through you to remind the government that initially when this particular law was mooted, the Congress party was totally opposed to it. And the Congress party was totally opposed to it on the ground that the nation had witnessed experiences under TADA. How in many states in India TADA was misused, especially in states where TADA was not required. It was used for occasionally for partisan ends, for personal ends. And the Congress party felt that the purpose for which this particular law had been passed was not being served. It is with that in mind that the Congress party had opposed POTA. We believe that the remedy for dealing with terrorism was not necessarily to thwart the rights of individuals by curbing their rights in the existing criminal justice system and disallowing them basic procedural safeguards which are inherent in the Criminal Procedure Code. We had seen under TADA the misuse of confessions. We had seen under TADA that because the investigating agencies could not properly investigate cases, they only used the conviction and tried to obtain the convictions against the accused. We therefore decided that when POTA was sought to be pushed through in the fashion that it was, we opposed it. And that opposition continues till date. Indeed, the fact that the Honorable Deputy Prime Minister has moved this amendment is proof of the fact that the law is not working well. Otherwise, there was no need for amendment. Indeed, the Deputy Prime Minister just said that there have been allegations of misuse of POTA. And because there have been allegations of misuse of POTA, it was necessary to set up these review committees so that the review committees might be able to soften the blow, to take care of some of the excesses that had taken place in the misuse of POTA. So in a way, what we had said in our initial opposition to the law has proved to be correct. And your moving this amendment, the Deputy Prime Minister's moving this amendment, is proof of the fact that the position that the Congress party took against POTA was correct. Having said that, Mr. Vice Chairman, and the reason why I said that was, if you look at a small state like Jharkhand, the maximum number of POTA accused are in Jharkhand state. And just recently, and I'm not talking about too long ago, in 2003 itself, 83 of those accused were released. And the Director General of Police of Jharkhand said that they were being released because the evidence against them was very thin. Now you can imagine the plight of the accused, 83 of them incarcerated without remedy, incarcerated for a long period of time, and at the end of it, the Director General of Police says that we released them today because the evidence against them was thin. How does the state compensate them? How does the state deal with that kind of injustice? And this is not just limited to Jharkhand. This is applicable in various states where terrorism, of course, now throughout India, terrorism is a threat and it has to be dealt with. But in many situations we have seen that this particular law is used for certain personal ends, and that's the exact allegation that has been made pursuant to which this amendment has been brought. We know why this amendment has been brought. It is to keep an ally of this government together, to in fact show that, look, we are doing something for you. And I'll presently show that even that is a misnomer. Even that is not provided in the present amendment. Now, under the original act, before this amendment came, under section 60 of the original act, you set up review committees. And what was the purpose of those review committees? The purpose of those review committees under the original act before the amendment was to oversee the legality of certain administrative decisions. Therefore, under section 60, the review committee could review certain decisions which were vested in administrative authorities under this act. I'll give you an example. For example, under section 18 of POTA, you can proscribe an organization and list it, saying that this is a terrorist organization. Now, when you do that, that organization can file an application to the competent authorities saying that I have been included in the list of proscribed organizations. This inclusion is wrong. Now, that's done by the central government. That's a purely administrative act. Now, when that application is made to the competent authority may well, or the central government may well say, no, the inclusion is right. If that authority says that the inclusion is right, the matter goes to the review committee. And the review committee can, on application, decide that that inclusion of that organization in the list of proscribed organizations is wrong. And under section 19 of POTA, if that decision is given by the reviewing authority or the review committee, that decision is binding on the central government, and that particular organization will be removed from the list of proscribed organizations. So what was the purpose of the review committee? The review committee's purpose was to review the decision of administrative authorities. And I've given you one example. There's another example. For example, under section 36 of the Act, the chapter relating to interception, electronic interception or interception to hear conversations of people who might be involved in terrorist activities. Now, under the present law, and there's a specific chapter for it under POTA, you can intercept anybody's conversation and communication to find out whether that person is indulging in terrorist activities or not. But that interception is not as a matter of course. A police officer not below the rank of superintendent of police has to file an application. It has to file an application before a competent authority. The competent authority, as far as the central government is concerned, is an officer not below the rank of joint secretary. The competent authority, as far as the state government is concerned, is an officer not below the rank of secretary. So when such an application is made, that competent authority allows the interception. And when that competent authority allows the interception, and the interception takes place under section 39, then all decisions of the competent authority allowing interception are again subject to the review of the review committee. Now, what is that? That is review of administrative action. So under section 60 of the original act, the reviewing authority had the right to review all administrative decisions where prescribed, where the role of the authority is prescribed, to review them, and when those decisions were reviewed, that would be binding on the government. Now, what does this amendment do? And the Deputy Prime Minister rightly said, let's focus on this amendment. What does this amendment do? Let us look at it, clause by clause. The first clause is that it adds a clause to section 60, because section 60 is the section which vests power in the review committee. It says, without prejudice to the other provisions of the Act, any review committee constituted under subsection 1 shall, on the application of any agreed person, review whether there is a prima facie case for proceeding against the accused under this Act and issue directions accordingly. Now let's test this. Let's test this. Supposing there is information that somebody has committed a crime under POTA. Matter is investigated. It is being investigated. Now you have a certain period of time under this Act for that investigation to be complete. Now naturally, a review committee before the completion of investigation won't be able to exercise any powers, because the investigating authority will say, I have not completed investigation yet. But after the investigation is complete, under section 173(2) of the Code of Criminal Procedure, a report is to be filed with the magistrate. And on that report, the magistrate takes cognizance. So while the investigation is on, the review committee cannot interfere, because the investigating authorities will say investigation is not complete. And the moment it is complete, the investigating authority under the law is bound to file that report in court, and the court will take cognizance. But once the court takes cognizance, the review committee cannot again come into the picture, because the review committee cannot interfere in the cognizance of the court. So how will this review committee ever interfere? I'd like to know from the Honorable Deputy Prime Minister. It can't interfere in the course of investigation. It can't interfere, as that Deputy Prime Minister rightly said, that this is not vested with any judicial authority. The review committee is only a review committee, as the Deputy Prime Minister is quite aware of, that many people were incarcerated under preventive detention law during bad times. And who were the boards who would review these matters? The advisory boards under Article 22 of the Constitution of India. These advisory boards had no judicial power. Why? Because the matter never went to court. It was preventive detention. It was not for the acquisition of an offense. It didn't relate to accused. It related to activities which might result in offenses, in commission of offenses. In that situation, the advisory boards would sit down, headed by a chairman who would be a retired judge or a sitting judge, and then they would decide matters, and they would direct the release of persons under preventive detention law. Therefore, again, it was review of administrative action. Therefore, the only limited role that any review committee can have under an act of this sort, because this act only prosecutes people. This is not an act relating to preventive detention. The only authority that a review committee can have is before the matter goes to court, before cognizance is taken. But before the matter goes to court, the matter is under investigation. So how will a review committee ever say that please refuse, please release the man because there is no prima facie case? This is the First Amendment. Namely, that he can make an application for review whether there is a prima facie case for proceeding against the accused. That prima facie case can only be concluded upon the conclusion of the investigation. And under the law, once there is an investigation, there is an obligation of the... I give you another example, sir, and this is very important. Take the case where the review committee says that there is no prima facie case. Now, a police officer in charge of a police station who is investigating an offense under POTA is not bound by the review committee. He is bound by the Code of Criminal Procedure. He will say, I have to file a report. My investigation is not complete. As and when investigation is complete under 173(2), I have to file a report with the magistrate. You can't intercede in that statutory process. And if you can't intercede in that statutory process, why is the government bringing this amendment? In order to tell somebody that, look, we are with you when they know that they can't do anything for them? Why is this necessary? It's a most ill-conceived piece of legislation. I'll just finish in a little while. Then, sir, look at the other clause. A direction under subsection 4. Now, under subsection 4, he can say there is no prima facie case. Now, what does the other clause say? Any direction under subsection 4 by the review committee constituted by the central government shall be binding on the central government and the state government and the police officer investigating the offence. So, the police officer investigating the offence will have to say, I cannot be bound by the code of criminal procedure. I will be bound by the action of the review committee. How can that be? Secondly, the review committee constituted by the state government shall be binding on the state government. Where the reviews of the subsection 4 relating to the same offence, this is not relevant. Then a more dangerous amendment has been passed, according to me, and it is now part of the amendment, is that where any, and this is clause 5, clause 7, where any review committee constituted under subsection 1 is of opinion that there is no prima facie case for proceeding against the accused and issues directions under subsection 4, then the proceedings pending against the accused shall be deemed to have been withdrawn from the date of such direction. How can that be? That they will be deemed to have been withdrawn. In other words, the review committee is not a court. And the investigation is not complete. So how will the decision of the review committee be binding? The more serious issue, sir, is in any case, this does not apply to judicial proceedings. Once a judge has taken cognizance, and in the case and the gentleman they want to help, the matter is already in court and the judge has taken cognizance. Then in that case, in any case, it will not apply, because the direction of a review committee which is not vested with judicial power cannot possibly impact on and be binding on a court. So obviously this whole amendment is entirely misconceived, and the people for whom this amendment has been passed are not going to be helped through the process of this amendment. There's a very serious situation, sir, and that's about the last point that I will make. There's a very serious situation that has arisen. The Attorney General of this country, in arguing the matter before the court in the Supreme Court, has interpreted Section 21 to mean that if a person makes a speech, public speech, giving moral support to a terrorist organization, and that's now the ruling of the court, that by itself doesn't amount to an offense under Section 21 of the Act. And I just, with your permission, sir, I just want to read that few sentences from that judgment which say that if Parliament stipulates that the Terrorist Act itself has to be committed with criminal intention, can it be said that a person who professes or invites support or arranges, manages or assists in arranging or managing a meeting or addressing a meeting has committed the offence if he does not have an intention or design to further the activities of any terrorist organization? Then are we going to have speeches in Tamil Nadu, in Kashmir, in the Northeast and other parts of this country giving moral support to terrorist organizations? Are we going to say then that no, they can keep on giving those speeches and they are not liable under POTA? Is that the intent of the government? I'd like to know. Is this not supporting terrorism rather than doing away with it? And this. No. The actual impact of it is that people will make speeches, say that there is a Supreme Court decision, because we would like the government to move the Supreme Court for a review of this. There's a Supreme Court decision saying that to morally support a terrorist organization is not a terrorist act.
No, this is not like this.
This is what it is.
I have read the whole judgment, and it's the issue is mens rea.
That's right.
If there is an intent.
That's right.
If there is no intent.
That's right.
Only.
I agree. I appreciate. In other words, a person who.
Therefore, if there is no intent,
I agree.
I would think that what the Supreme Court has said has been the greatest strength for these review committees.
Right. Now, so the point the Deputy Prime Minister is right. In other words, when you morally support a terrorist organization, you can well argue, I had no intent to support it. I had no intent to, I had no mens rea. I was only morally supporting it.
अब आप समाप्त करें.
I was only morally supporting it. I had no mens rea.
आप समाप्त करें आपका.
मैं जवाब नहीं, क्योंकि उन्होंने इंटरवीन किया, तो मैं सिर्फ बात स्पष्ट कर रहा हूं, मैं जवाब नहीं दे रहा। हां, सही बात है कि मेंसरिया जरूरी है, लेकिन अब मेंसरिया साबित कैसे करोगे? अगर आप खुलेआम पब्लिकली किसी टेररिस्ट ऑर्गेनाइजेशन के बारे में बोलते हो और उसके पक्ष में बातें कहते हो, तो क्या कोई कह सकता है कि आपका कोई इंटेंट नहीं है?
चलिए,
तो इंटेंट आप प्रेसे No, I am not challenging anything. I am only interpreting. I am only saying that this is a very dangerous trend, and in any event, it's not concerned with this amendment. I am only inviting the attention of the Deputy Prime Minister that an Attorney General...
Substance, Kapilji says that the Supreme Court judgment of the 16th is dangerous, not this particular amendment.
No. That the interpretation given by the Attorney General...
No. You have read out not from the Attorney General's speech.
No.
You have read out from the Supreme Court judgment.
No. I have said that the principle laid down as argued by the Attorney General to give moral support to the terrorist organization without mens rea is okay. Without mens rea is okay. Fine. There's nothing more that I have to say beyond this.
मान्य BP Singhal.
So, I thought I was just concluding, sir. I've just concluded. Therefore, sir, both from the point of view of the original enactment and the amendment, which doesn't seek to serve any purpose, if at all this amendment will create more confusion, we in the Congress party strongly oppose this amendment. We believe that there is no necessity for this amendment, and we lock, stock and barrel think that this law should be abolished and a more appropriate piece of legislation enacted.
Sir, I think I should first deal with that problem that Mr. Sibal raised, that when an investigation officer takes over a case, then he has to complete the investigation and the review committee cannot interfere. Granting that, I think he has read the original act where it says that the state sanction will be necessary before any prosecution can be launched. Now, in between the case being started, there is a room for sanction by the state government. And if the review committee, the aggrieved person, he can safely approach the review committee and the review committee can give its opinion. So that infirmity that he was trying to point out is more imaginary than real. It has been said that the law of the land is enough. Now, sir, on this question, there's a wide difference between the normal crime and the crime that is being committed by the terrorists. Every terrorist action is seeing escalation of the terror. There is a program for heightening the terror. There is no such program in normal crime. It is a very special kind of a crime. Then their handbooks which are recovered, they reveal that their aims are widely different than a normal criminal. The normal criminal commits an act for personal gain. Here they have political ramifications, and more importantly, they want to attract international attention. Then indulge in wanton destruction. A normal, even a dacoit, if he shoots, it's incidental, the destruction is incidental to the crime. Here they do for the sake of destruction, whether it's life or whether it's property. Then the normal criminal uses conventional weapons. Terrorists have got highly sophisticated weapons, highly sophisticated communication systems. It's a very different kind of enemy that we have to deal with here. And we have to remember that 35,000 people and more than 55,000 security men have been killed by these actions. Now, the most important is that there is no interconnection of one criminal act in the normal crime with another criminal act. In this case, the insurgent groups are providing interconnecting help and help by moral help, physical help, and even help with funds and weapons. And yet, the biggest point that I hold against comparing it with normal crime is that in normal crime, you are never short of witnesses. They are there, they are put up to the court, and the justice is done. In this case, no witness dare come up. There's a complete scarcity of witness in the matter of the terrorist acts. So to compare that these people could be treated under the normal law is extremely fallacious. Then they said that this will lead to misuse. Yes, it was conceded right in the act itself that it could lead to misuse. And the concept of putting up a review committee was precisely to meet that threat. So far as misuse of law is concerned, misuse of law takes place in so many cases. For instance, the Customs Act, if a person is caught with some imported, say, hard disks, it is presumed that he'll have to prove that it was not smuggled. The burden shifts on the accused. Likewise, there's a Prevention of Corruption Act. If somebody is having disproportionate property, it is presumed that he is guilty of corruption unless the onus shifts on him to prove his innocence. There's the Foreigners Act. If a person says that he is a foreigner, the onus of proving himself a citizen lies on the person accused. Then there is the Income Tax Act, the Commission of Sati Act. Then even the Evidence Act makes certain presumptions. In 113A, it makes presumptions that abetment of suicide should be presumed in the case of a married woman dying within 7 years of her marriage. Then various other presumptions. So the onus being shifted onto the accused is not unique to this particular act, this particular law. It is there contained in several acts where it has to be done for the sake of arriving at justice, especially where there is a dearth of witnesses. I do not see any logic behind a law that is going to assuage and correct the most oft repeated allegation of misuse. They say that they have opposed it. They have opposed it. They have been opposing it now. But the same government of their party has sent up persons under Pota in Mumbai. Now there's double speak here. Now in Mocha, it is all right if they're sent up in Mocha, but it's wrong if it's sent up in Pota. This double speak is not the first time. It is all right if a PM bribes some persons to break them up and prove a majority in the parliament. But it is wrong for someone, I'm coming to it. Someone, another CM who does the same kind of trick, he's unworthy of being even talked to. Sir, the act is very simple. It just caters for four things for the review committee. One, that if a person feels that he has been wrongly implicated, he can approach the review committee, and the review committee will conduct whatever inquiry is necessary and come to a finding about the prima facie correctness or wrongness about the implication of that man. The second aspect of the review committee comes where it relates to a whole party being proscribed under the schedule. Now, if a party feels that I am being wrongly proscribed, it can apply to the government, and if the government refuses it, then under section 19, the review committee can examine it, and if it finds that the proscription is wrong, the government will have to remove that name from that list. The third case comes in the case of interceptions. Now, if interceptions are done, they are the competent authority, and if interceptions are done without taking the permission of the competent authority, of course, it is illegal. But if the competent authority grants the interception and then it comes to the review committee, the committee can look into it, and if it says, okay, the interceptions in respect of this person are justified, then those interceptions, and then alone, are they admissible as evidence. If, however, the review committee discovers that this was not the right person whose whose communications should have been intercepted, then in that case, those interceptions, however taken, they will never be admissible in the court of law. So it provides a ground for the innocent to be protected altogether. This then is the finding. As to the question that Mr. Sibal raised, that it is encroaching upon the role of the court. Now, I was quite baffled to see that, because if this committee only decides whether there is a prima facie case for or against, if we were to think that this decision to take a prima facie case, whether it is right or wrong, is encroaching upon the courts, well then the investigating officers of police, even they will be called as encroaching upon the court, because they decide whether a prima facie case is made out or not. I mean, this is not encroaching upon the jurisdiction of the courts. The courts, of course, are there to decide. But so far as this law is concerned, this amendment is concerned, it provides a method for the really innocent to approach the review committee, and if it is made out that there is a prima facie case which does not exist against them, then its ruling will be binding on the government. And it is at that stage that the government will have to withdraw that case. With these words, I commend that this amendment may kindly be passed unanimously.
Manya A. Raghavan, Vijay Raghavan.
Honorable Vice Chairman, sir, at the outset, I would seek an apology from the side of the government to come this house with this amendment, because Rajya Sabha did not accept this piece of legislation. We opposed it, we defeated it. And you use your brute majority in the parliament to bulldoze this quota on the people of this country. Now, after 2 years, you are coming with a piece of amendment. It proves that whatever apprehensions about this legislation which we have raised is proved correct. In a way, you are also forced to agree that this piece of extraordinary legislation is bad in motivation, vindictive in nature, and a weapon for political vendetta. Experience proved it. How it was used by some states, that is a testimony of the misuse of quota. Now, sir, government is claiming we are just saving this country. Whatever limitations are there, it would be solved by this small piece of 4-page amendment. Is it correct? It is a multi-headed monster. And after touching the teeth, this tail, they are telling country is escaped. Is it truth? It is not reality. Have you plugged all the loopholes of this enactment through this amendment? Is it possible? It is not at all possible. Actually, we demand this amendment will not serve the purpose. You have to repeal Poto and Pota in toto. That is the only way out to save the poor people of this country. Sir, now what you are doing? The government is amending section 60 of the Act, so that they are giving some new teeth to the central and state review committees, and they are going to set up these review committees, etc. Sir, actually, what is the real intention behind it? Now the general election is coming. Meanwhile, one of the leader of the ally of this NDA government has been under custody, is in jail for so many months. They want to release him from the jail. They want a way out. No, otherwise some message has to be given. Not only that, some of his colleagues, the Honorable Home Minister's colleagues also was under the threat of this arrest. You were forced to send the Attorney General to give this explanation, what he had given in front of the Supreme Court, what has been referred here. Why he was forced to give this explanation? He was forced to give this explanation to save the face of a minister. Otherwise, he would be under bar, behind bar. So that is what happens. That is what the main reason behind this amendment. Thirdly, sir, you see, with regard to this Central Review Committee, it is a safety valve, what they are saying. They have appointed this committee only after 1 year of the enactment of the quota. That too only after hue and cry in this house. We raised this demand, the abusing of power. Then only the government was ready to appoint this review committee. And we are all aware that what is the power of this committee and how it is going to behave. Normally, I am not sure about it, because this would be a committee appointed by the government, maybe loyal to the government also. The experience shows that some such committees have worked according to the whims and wishes of the ruling government. That is what we have the experiences of such committees. I am not sure about what would be the fate of this committee. Has it get the right of this? Has it get the power of a judicial committee? Nobody knows about it. Then, sir, you are giving, through this amendment, we are getting a chance to approach the Central Review Committee. Is it possible for poor people to approach this committee in Delhi? Those who are from the very poor families, is it possible for them to approach the Central Review Committee on their individual grievances and complain? Is it possible? It is very difficult. So, there would be a committee, not helpful for the poor people in the villages or in the states. Secondly, sir, there is actually the problem is related to section 21 of this act. Is there any amendment on section 21? Which part they are going to misuse? Section 21. Why the government was forced to give, the Attorney General was forced to give this explanation? It was on this section 21. So, here this amendment never touches any of the bad aspects of section 21. So, sir, this is not going to help the situation. Then again, there is no time limit. There is no time limit regarding the resolving of the issue.
अगर आपके भाषण में टाइम लिमिट है,
yeah, but this is a very serious issue, sir. This currently it is a very serious issue. Yeah, but I will take 1 or 2 minutes, sir. But this problem is here also no time limit. Meanwhile, the court take a decision. Honorable Kapil Sibal ji has talked about that matter. That is the situation. Then, sir, again it is misusing against minorities. That's a serious issue. It was misused against minorities, and nearly about 246 Muslims were arrested in Gujarat. This is the experience. Is there any safeguard in this bill, this amendment, of this misusing of this act against minorities? Then, sir, 17 states did not implement this act. Does it mean all these 17 state terrorists are moving here and there? Are they free? 17 states. They did not use it. And where you used it? Jharkhand. Is there any cross-border terrorism in Jharkhand? It itself is misusing. Jharkhand, against whom? School children. Is it not misusing? Jharkhand, against whom? 81 years old man. Is it not misusing? Gujarat, against minorities. Is it not misusing? Tamil Nadu, nobody knows. Is it not misusing? Is it sufficient? Is it sufficient? You will get a chance. Is it sufficient, sir? Is it sufficient? That is my question. Here, what you are doing? you are telling that if somebody spoke against this, you are anti-national? Arrest under quota? That is what the BJP spokesperson is telling. If you oppose quota, you are anti-national. Our nationalism is, you are going to judge according to this thing. This is what happened. This is what the...
we are not discussing quota. Quota has been passed by the parliament. It has been confirmed by the Supreme Court. We are discussing amendment only. He should confine himself up to the amendment only, not this quota. Quota has been passed by the parliament. It has been confirmed by the Supreme Court.
आपने अपनी बात कह दी, लेकिन ये इस परिधि में आता है। चलिए अब आप समाप्त करें। हाँ, बच्चे को नहीं। सही बात। ये बात भी सही है। ये बात भी सही है और ये बात भी सही है कि पोटा शब्द या पोटा एक्ट जो है इसकी परिधि में आता है। अब आप समाप्त करें। अब आप कृपया समाप्त करें। अब आप कृपया समाप्त करें। आपकी पार्टी के
कितने सेंटेंस हैं कंक्लूडिंग? सर, why I told you this was the version of the BJP spokesperson immediately after the voting in Lok Sabha. That is why I am telling it. I am not mentioning about act or amendment. This is what happened immediately after the passing of the thing. Sir, and we have an experience. What? There was Poto and Pota, everything. But this cross-border terrorism happened in Jammu and Kashmir. Akshardham thing happened. Attacks on parliament happened. Attacks on Jammu Kashmir assembly happened. So what does it prove? This is not sufficient to safeguard this country. This is not sufficient. You need some other thing. Quota is not sufficient. In such a situation, sir, I would like to say, I would like to conclude that this piece of amendment is only an eyewash. This piece of amendment only to give an impression or some kind of patting to the allies who are in jail. This piece of amendment never helped the misusing of this quota. Therefore, you have to repeal it, and at the earliest, it should be abrogated from the book of rule. Thank you, sir.
श्री शाहिद सिद्दीकी। आप कायदे से तो 3 मिनट है, आप दोहरा 2 मिनट 3 मिनट और ले लीजिएगा।
मैडम चेयरपर्सन,